I grew up in the US, a nation where rugby is basically non-existent. I somehow managed to massively get into football/soccer whilst living in the US, even though it's not the most popular sport in the country. But it was at least fairly easy to watch the Premier League in MLS. It's actually probably easier to watch the Premier League in the US than in England because of how insane Sky is with making sure no one gets to watch the Premier League unless you're loaded with cash. So I could tune into Premier League games every weekend. I could watch MLS as well. One thing that I never really saw and barely even knew existed was rugby. Because again, it's just not really a thing in the US. Our national team plays in front of like maybe 5,000 fans if they're lucky. So, it's hard to see because no one pays attention to it. But then I came to Britain. I've lived here for a while now. I watched some of the games at the Rugby World Cup in 2023 for Rugby Union. I enjoyed that quite a lot. I didn't know there were two different codes or forms of rugby until I came to the UK, so that was also a new finding and a new experience. But I'm here now, and I saw that there was a Magic League or Magic Weekend event taking place in Newcastle, and basically this is in the top tier of rugby league in the UK. There is an event they do where every single game for one weekend is played in one stadium, so 6 games over the course of 2 days in one stadium, and it seemed like a pretty cool event and something that I would enjoy taking part in, even having never watched a game of rugby league before, and not even entirely being familiar with the rules.
I'm gonna be honest, as a stadium connoisseur, I think St. James's Park is really ugly. I went to that too loud because I'm right outside of it, but like, I think it looked ugly. Alright, so I got unreserved seating. Made sure I got here early because I prefer to be high up if I'm going to be behind the posts. So there's not a lot of people here right now, which is good for me because it means I can get the best seat. I have a program to read now, so I could just relax for an hour before the first game starts. First game done. Lay were down for a lot of it, but kind of came back and slowly weathered down the storm. Eventually pulled out a result, so it was a good job by them. I enjoyed that. I'm interested in why there's a French team in the English league, but I'm here for it. I feel a bit bad for them because I feel like they're not going to get much fan support at events like this when their fans have to travel across the channel. Which I think was expected before the game. The most interesting thing that happened was that a balloon went on the pitch at one point. That's really about it. At one point it got so bad that the Leeds fans started chanting "Salford get battered everywhere they go," and Salford joined in. That was funny. Yeah, dominant win for Hull. I think that was my favorite game of the bunch. It was a lot closer than the final score shows. Leeds jumped out to a 10-0 lead in the first half. Then they had to work really hard to hold on to it in the second. And hear all the Leeds fans sing. They were really loud all game. They're really happy now. But St. Helens threatened a lot throughout the second half and nearly leveled the score a number of times. Absolute defensive battle, and Leeds held on.
Okay, I've had a day now to just kind of collect my thoughts a little bit, so now I can relay them a bit more clearly in front of camera. I should say before anything else that there were 6 more teams playing on Sunday. I didn't get tickets to Sunday because I was kind of just wanting to ease my way into it and see what I thought first. It looks like Magic Weekend's going to be in Newcastle again next year, and if so, I probably will go again and might buy tickets for the whole event because I did have a pretty good time at Saturday games. I'd say that I am still very much a football fan. Don't know if I'm gonna ever like really, really get into rugby league in the same sense as that I absolutely adore football. But I would see a few more rugby league games, and definitely I'd do Magic Weekend again because it was a pretty fun time. I think especially the Leeds St. Helens game at the end, I was pretty excited about. I enjoyed seeing the defensive battle there, where St. Helens were knocking on the door for a lot of the second half, and yet they just couldn't seem to get into the try zone, and Leeds held them out really well. So I had a lot of fun watching that and just seeing the tactics of where you throw, where to go. And every once in a while, you'd get a little bit of a breakthrough. But it was hard to get into the try zone. And like even when players would start running and they'd have an open field ahead of them, it was hard for them to get the whole way before someone could catch up to them. And it felt like there was always someone who would catch up to them usually, so you didn't get any like super exciting big breaks, which I guess probably do happen sometimes, but they might not be as common. I would say one nitpick was the things that happened on the other side of the field. Sometimes I struggled to see what was going on. Even then, I intentionally went pretty far back and high up behind the posts because I wanted to see what was going on the other side, and I have some experience watching from behind a goal in a football match where it's hard to see what's going on the other side unless you're higher up. But I think that if I was in that seat for a football match, I would have been able to see more clearly what was happening, whereas because of just how small of a line it was to get over, it was sometimes still pretty hard to know exactly what happened and whether or not they got over the line or not on the other side of the field. You know, because the fans on the other side of the stadium would start cheering, but I and a lot of other people I noticed were looking at the board after a try would happen just to see how it actually happened. So I don't think there's any real way to fix that. And again, it's more of a nitpick than anything. I still enjoyed it a lot. And I think one of the things I also really enjoyed was seeing players that it kind of felt like pinball, where they just like bounce off another player almost and keep running instead of getting tackled. I think it was Ipape, I have no idea if I pronounced that right, for the Lay Leopards, where he would bounce off people, and instead of getting tackled, he'd somehow manage to stay on his feet and keep going. That was pretty fun to watch. I think for the Magic Weekend event as a whole, I also enjoyed a lot of the fan culture. I was kind of surprised to see that it felt like I was kind of an outlier in the stadium. Like, I thought there'd be a few more casual fans there, but most of them did seem pretty invested in their teams, which is cool to see. I was more surprised because this seems like the kind of event that might attract more casual fans. Of course, if you don't have an interest in rugby league, maybe watching 3 games in one day isn't the thing that's going to excite you too much. I don't know. I was just surprised to see that there didn't seem to be too many casuals there. So I was kind of an odd one out, but it was still fun to watch and fun to see how the fans kind of interacted with each other, because you had a ton of people in different shirts, and also there was alcohol allowed in view of the field, which I think it's only banned for football, which I think is kind of silly. Like, I don't even mind banning alcohol because I think sport is something that plays with emotions quite a lot, and alcohol can make that worse. So I feel like you either got to ban it for everything or allow it for anything, because it's not really fair that you get to drink alcohol for rugby or cricket games but not football matches. Again, ban it across the board or don't. But just having football banned is a bit off. But even with all alcohol, the fans seemed to just kind of enjoy the moment and enjoy the games. They didn't really fight with each other at all. And it was more of a friendly, like, passionate atmosphere, certainly, but also kind of friendly. One of the moments, I talked about it in the video as well in the stadium, was there was one moment when the Salford fans were joining in because Leeds fans who had come in watching the end of the Salford game were chanting "Salford get battered everywhere they go," and that could be the kind of moment that creates some kind of clash. But instead, the Salford fans, maybe a bit self-deprecating, just kind of joined in. And again, it's just passionate but still friendly, I think was the vibe I got from the crowd. And that was pretty fun to see. So I do think Magic Weekend seems like a pretty fun time. It also helps that I was in the stand with the Leeds and Salford fans, who both I think had the best uh, atmospheres. Like they did the best job at generating an atmosphere. The Leeds fans had a lot to be excited about because that same night they had also probably seen Leeds United win the championship. So a good day to be from Leeds. Uh, but really, it was only Catalans who didn't have a big fan support, which kind of sucks for them because they are in the south of France. Like, it's not an easy thing to have a bunch of traveling fans. I'm sure they did have a few travel, but I can't imagine too many did. They're at a bit of a disadvantage there, but everyone else seemed to have pretty good fan support, and it was overall a really fun time, and I'd definitely go again.